Picture this, all right. It's late at night.
Right.
The house is, completely quiet. Everyone else is asleep. And there's just this single lamp on your desk.
Yeah, casting that sort of solitary glow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there just staring at a screen or a notebook. And there is this quiet, persistent, just agonizing question
Oh,
circling your mind.
I know exactly where this is going.
You tell yourself, I work hard. I earn decent money. I mean, I'm not lazy, and I'm certainly not stupid.
Right.
So why does it feel like I'm always falling behind? Like, why does money come in and seem to just evaporate?
Just vanish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has everyone else figured out about this game that I haven't?
Man, that specific late-night anxiety, it's so universal.
Mm.
But at the same time, it feels intensely isolating,
Totally.
People experience it every single time they check their bank balance at the end of the month, or when they see a colleague taking some vacation they know they themselves can't afford.
But nobody ever talks about it.
Right. Nobody says a word. We just internalize it. We treat it as a personal failure, like a lack of discipline or, I don't know, intelligence.
But the truth, and this is exactly what we're doing a deep dive on today, is that the problem isn't your salary.
No.
It's not your job, and it's definitely not your intelligence. The problem is the fundamental way you have been conditioned to think about money.
Yep. The invisible forces.
Exactly. So today, we're taking a profound deep dive into those invisible forces that actually shape our financial realities.
I'm really excited for this one.
Me too. So our sources today are Morgan Housel's massively influential book, The Psychology of Money, alongside this really fascinating, highly dramatic, personalized, deep analysis script that's based on the book's opening themes.
And that script is wild because it takes Housel's overarching economic principles and translates them into this incredibly intimate psychological mirror for you, the listener.
Yeah, the mission of our deep dive today is to place these two texts in direct dialogue. Like, we want to extract not just what Housel's book says on a macro level, but we want to use the script to understand why these concepts dictate the granular, everyday details of our lives.
Right, the real-world application.
Yeah, and both of these sources, they aggressively attack the exact same foundational premise.
The great lie.
Yes, the great lie of modern finance, which is this belief that money is just a math problem.
Right, which it isn't.
Okay, let's unpack this. The great lie. We're going to decode your own financial operating system today.
Oh, I love that term.
Because, from the moment we can count, we are taught that money is just simple arithmetic.
Yep.
You earn a certain amount, you spend a certain amount, you subtract the latter from the former, and boom.
There's your savings.
Right. And if you want more wealth, you either increase the top line or decrease the bottom line. It's so clean. It's rational whiteboard logic.
But it treats human beings like calculators. And that is exactly where the entire traditional financial industry gets it completely wrong. Sure, it's incredibly clean on a whiteboard.
That's great in a presentation.
Yeah, but it completely falls apart when applied to human psychology.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating here is how the book lays this all out. Because finance in schools and universities, it's overwhelmingly taught as a hard science.
Right, like physics or chemistry.
Exactly, a math-based field. We just operate under this assumption that if you just feed the right data into the right formula, the formula will tell you the optimal action to take.
And then you'll just flawlessly execute.
Right, like some programmed machine. But Housel points out this glaring blind spot. Knowing what to do mathematically tells you absolutely nothing about what actually happens inside your head when you try to execute it in the real world.
Right, because if money were purely mathematical, you could take two people earning, say, $50,000 a year.
Okay.
Living in the exact same neighborhood, exact same tax brackets.
Yeah.
They would inevitably have the exact same net worth after 10 years.
Right. Mathematically, they should.
But they never do. One might have robust investments and total peace of mind, while the other is just drowning in high-interest credit card debt. Same data, same math, radically different outcomes.
Which just points to this inescapable conclusion that money is a behavior problem. It's not a math problem.
Yes.
And to hammer this home, Housel provides what I honestly consider the most staggering contrast in modern financial history.
Oh, the two guys?
Yeah. He introduces us to two men whose lives just definitively prove that financial success is a soft skill rather than a hard science. We have Ronald Read and we have Richard Fuscone.
The contrast between these two is just incredible.
Yeah.
Break down the mechanics of how this played out, because on paper, this makes absolutely zero sense.
Okay, so let's start with Ronald Read. He was a janitor and a gas station attendant in rural Vermont.
Janitor.
Yep. First person in his family to even graduate high school. He hitchhiked to campus to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. And for 25 years, he fixed cars. For another 17 years, he swept floors at JCPenney.
So extremely humble, blue-collar life.
Extremely. At age 38, he bought a 2-bedroom house for $12,000, and he just lived there for the rest of his life.
And his main hobby was, like, chopping firewood.
Literally chopping firewood. He lived a quiet, totally unremarkable life, and he died in 2014 at the age of 92.
Okay.
But upon his death, this rural janitor made international headlines.
Because of what he left behind.
Right. He left behind a fortune of over $8 million.
$8 million from sweeping floors and pumping gas.
Yes.
And let's be super clear for you listening right now. There was no secret inheritance here.
None.
No winning lottery ticket, no hidden trust fund.
None whatsoever. The mechanics of his wealth were painfully simple.
But psychologically Herculean.
Exactly. He saved what little he could from his modest paychecks. He invested those small sums in blue-chip stocks. And then, and this is the critical mechanism, he just waited.
He just sat there.
He let decades of compound interest do the heavy lifting. He did not interrupt the compounding process.
Which is so hard to do.
It's incredibly hard. Now, contrast him with Richard Fuscone, who was actually in the news just months before Read passed away.
Okay, and this guy is the polar opposite.
The exact opposite in every conceivable metric. Fuscone was a Harvard-educated executive at Merrill Lynch with an MBA.
Jeez.
He was a titan of the financial world. He was even on Crane's business magazine's 40 under 40 list.
So he's like the elite of the elite.
Yeah, he had so much money and success that he retired in his 40s just to become a philanthropist.
Okay, so Fuscone is basically the apex predator of Wall Street. He possesses all the mathematical data, the insider knowledge, the elite education, this deep algorithmic understanding of markets.
Yep.
In a math-based game, he should win 100 times out of 100.
He absolutely should. But behavior intervened. On the mid-2000s, Fuscone borrowed heavily to expand this 18,000-square-foot mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut.
18,000 square feet.
Yeah, we are talking about a property with 11 bathrooms, 2 elevators, 2 pools, 7 garages. It demanded over $90,000 a month just in basic maintenance.
90 grand a month just to keep the lights on and the grass cut. That's insane.
It is. He used massive leverage to fund this lifestyle of extreme excess. And then the 2008 financial crisis hit.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Because he was highly leveraged and his assets were completely illiquid, the market downturn just completely wiped him out.
Wiped him out.
He declared bankruptcy. His sprawling estate was sold in a foreclosure auction for 75% less than its appraised value.
Wow.
So you have the janitor who dies a multimillionaire philanthropist and the Harvard executive who goes bankrupt.
Which just completely shatters the illusion that financial success is about intelligence or math.
Absolutely shatters it.
And Housel makes this brilliant observation here. He says finance is arguably the only major industry where this outcome is even structurally possible.
Right, think about other fields.
Yeah, like you would never see a news story about a humble janitor performing a quadruple bypass surgery better than a Harvard-trained cardiothoracic surgeon.
No, never.
You'd never see someone with no architectural training just casually designing a skyscraper that outperforms the work of top engineers.
It just wouldn't happen.
But in investing, the untrained amateur can absolutely crush the educated elite.
And why is that?
Because Ronald Read had patience, and Richard Fuscone had greed. And patience and greed, they aren't mathematical formulas.
Right.
They're emotional states, they're behaviors.
Exactly. And this macro-level economic theory is where that deep analysis script does something very, very clever.
Yeah, I love how this script handles this.
It takes this grand, sweeping narrative of the janitor and the executive, and it distills it into the micro decisions that you make every single day.
Because most of us aren't building 18,000 square foot mansions.
Right, and we aren't chopping firewood for 50 years either.
Thank goodness.
So the script introduces us to person A and person B to show how this behavior versus math dynamic plays out on like a random Tuesday afternoon.
Right. Let's really look at the script's interpretation here. So person A and person B, they work at the exact same company.
Okay.
They earn the identical salary. They live in the same city. And it's salary day.
The best day.
Right. Person A wakes up, sees that deposit notification on their phone, and feels this massive rush of dopamine and relief.
We all know that feeling.
But immediately, the modern digital ecosystem goes to work.
Oh, yeah, it's relentless.
The phone shows flash sales, targeted ads for a new gadget, restaurant recommendations from some influencer, and person A's mind starts calculating.
Mm.
But as the script acutely points out, they aren't calculating compound interest or savings rates.
No, not at all.
They are calculating emotional pleasure and justification.
Yeah, that internal monologue is purely behavioral. It goes like, I worked hard this month. I endured that terrible meeting with my boss. I deserve this.
I earned it.
Right. It's just one dinner out. It's just one gadget. It isn't going to bankrupt me.
Exactly. So they tap that Buy Now button, they agree to the expensive dinner, they renew a subscription they barely even use.
And mathematically, each individual expense is actually small.
Super small.
Each one feels entirely justified in isolation.
But by the 25th of the month, the account is just severely depleted. And person A, sitting there genuinely confused, wondering where all the money evaporated to.
The math didn't fail them.
No. The cumulative behavioral pattern failed them. There was absolutely no friction between the impulse and the purchase.
Right. Now, consider the script's portrayal of person B.
Okay.
Same salary, same city, subjected to the exact same targeted ads and temptations on their phone.
Person B isn't some emotionless robot.
No, they feel the exact same desires. But when salary day arrives and those impulses hit, person B executes this practically invisible behavioral mechanism.
Which is, they pause.
The pause. Before Apple Pay or the credit card can be utilized, they ask a critical set of questions. Do I actually need this right now? Can this wait 48 hours? Will I regret not buying this tomorrow? Or will I regret buying it?
The power of the pause. It seems so incredibly simple, but it interrupts the whole behavioral loop.
It creates friction. That's the key.
Yeah.
And the script notes that person B doesn't deny themselves everything.
Right, they aren't monks.
Sometimes they do buy the item, but often just that pause is enough to let the emotional spike subside and they let the purchase go.
Yeah.
So by the end of the month, person B has capital left over. And the profound insight the script offers here isn't just that person B saved cash.
Right, it's deeper than that.
The script argues that person B is buying something far more valuable than a gadget. They are buying control.
Buying control.
They are securing the psychological state of actually running their financial life rather than just being dragged along by it.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but I want to pressure test this for a second.
Go for it.
I want to push back on the script's framing just a bit. Is person A really failing at financial mathematics? Or are they just failing a modern-day marshmallow test of delayed gratification?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it really reminds me of the diet industry.
How so?
Think about it. Everyone understands the fundamental math of weight loss. Calories consumed versus calories burned.
Right. Basic thermodynamics.
It's as basic, undeniable arithmetic. You can read 100 scientific papers on metabolism. You can have a super complex spreadsheet tracking all your macros.
Yep.
But at 11:30 p.m., when you are exhausted, you're stressed, and you're standing in the glow of the open refrigerator staring at a slice of chocolate cake.
The math is gone.
The math is completely irrelevant. The spreadsheet has zero power in that moment. What actually dictates the outcome is your emotional state, your willpower depletion, your stress levels in that exact microsecond.
Yeah.
So isn't that exactly what is happening to person A with the Buy Now button? Are we giving them almost too much of a pass by calling it a financial issue rather than just a basic self-control issue?
Yeah, that is a phenomenal analogy. And honestly, it actually reinforces the core premise rather than dismantling it.
Really?
Yeah, because the script and Housel's book both agree with you. It is a self-control and emotional regulation issue, which is exactly why treating it as a math problem is so completely ineffective.
I see.
What's brilliant about your diet analogy is that it highlights the gap between knowledge and execution. Housel discusses the psychology of money on this macro scale, decades of compound interest, massive market cycles. But the script brings it down to the exact mechanism you just described.
The refrigerator moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The 11:30 p.m. refrigerator moment, just translated to the 11:30 p.m. online shopping cart.
So the gap between your income and your actual wealth isn't a knowledge gap at all.
Yeah.
It's an execution gap, and that gap is filled entirely by human emotion.
Precisely. And behavior, as the script emphasizes, is governed by deep-seated psychological drivers. It's governed by fear, by desire, by ego, by the stories we tell ourselves in those quiet moments when nobody is watching. And this leads us to the inevitable, much deeper question. If our financial reality is dictated by behavior rather than math, where does this specific behavior originate?
Right. Why does person A seek comfort in spending while person B seeks comfort in saving?
Exactly. We have to trace these micro decisions all the way back to their source code.
And here is where it gets really interesting, because nobody is born knowing what a credit card is.
Nope.
The script introduces a concept here that I find absolutely fascinating: the financial operating system.
The financial operating system is arguably the most powerful psychological framework the script presents.
I agree.
Think about how an operating system works on a computer or a smartphone.
Just runs in the background.
Right, entirely in the background. It manages memory, it allocates resources, it dictates how every single application functions, yet the user rarely interacts with it directly or even thinks about it.
We just tap the apps.
Exactly. The script argues that your financial operating system was installed in your mind without your consent long before you ever earned a single paycheck.
Just downloaded straight into your brain.
Yes. It was compiled from the overheard conversations of your parents, the unspoken tensions at the dinner table, and the emotional reactions you observed when money was discussed during your childhood.
And the script provides two incredibly vivid childhood anchors to explain this.
They are so powerful.
Two distinct stories that perfectly illustrate how this operating system gets coded. Let's really look at story one.
Okay.
Imagine a young boy growing up in a household where money is perpetually tight. The script describes the atmosphere during the last week of the month. The parents might not even be shouting, but there is this palpable heaviness in the house.
You can feel it in the air.
The temperature literally changes. Then a crisis hits. Someone gets sick.
Right?
The boy watches his father standing at the entrance to the hospital. The father pulls out his wallet, opens it, and it's empty.
Oh, man.
The boy watches his father doing the desperate math in his head and sees the father's face contort into just pure, unadulterated helplessness.
That's devastating.
The script argues that this specific sensory moment burns into the boy's developing brain as an identity-level anchor. Money is no longer just paper currency used to trade for goods.
What does it become?
Money becomes oxygen. It becomes the literal wall separating his family from the abyss of helplessness and humiliation.
Wow. Now, fast forward 25 years.
Okay.
That same boy is now a man earning a six-figure salary.
So he's doing well.
On paper, he is completely financially secure, but his operating system is still running that hospital code.
The empty wallet code.
Yes, he checks his bank balance obsessively, multiple times a day. He hoards cash in low-yield savings accounts. He denies himself and his family basic pleasures, causing friction in his marriage.
Oh, wow.
And he is utterly terrified of investing in the stock market because the very concept of risk makes his stomach physically tighten.
Because risk equals the hospital.
Exactly. To a rational financial advisor, this man is making terrible mathematical decisions. He is actively losing purchasing power every year to inflation by just sitting on all that cash.
So he's objectively irrational.
He is objectively irrational. But to the man himself, in his own mind, every single dollar saved is a brick in the wall protecting him from ever feeling what his father felt at those hospital doors.
His behavior is a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
He isn't managing wealth. He's managing anxiety.
Exactly.
And then the script contrasts this with story two.
A totally different vibe.
A completely different boy, different household. This family is economically comfortable. And one day, the father makes a bad investment and loses a significant amount of money.
Okay.
But the father doesn't panic. He is completely calm at the dinner table. He just explains, look, we took a risk, it didn't pan out, we lost some money. It happens. We will adjust and we will make it back.
And over time, they do.
They do. So what is the code being installed in this boy's operating system? He learns that risk is not synonymous with death.
Right.
He learns that financial loss is a temporary state, not a permanent identity. He learns that patience and a cool head can recover what panic cannot.
And 20 years later, that man operates with a completely different set of behavioral algorithms.
He's playing a different game.
He invests confidently. When the market dips by 20%, he doesn't panic sell. He might even see it as a buying opportunity.
Right.
He takes calculated risks in his career. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the script's expert use of these really intimate stories seamlessly aligns with Housel's empirical evidence on generational trauma and economic anchoring.
Housel has some great data on this.
He really does. In the book, he points out this deeply humbling statistic. He says your personal experiences with money make up perhaps 0.000000001% of what has actually happened in the global economy.
Barely a fraction of a fraction.
But those experiences make up roughly 80% of how you think the world works.
That statistic is staggering. We literally project our microscopic sliver of lived experience onto the entire macroeconomic system.
We do.
And Housel illustrates this beautifully with historical data. He talks about how someone who grew up during the Great Depression views the economy through an entirely different lens than, say, a modern millennial investor.
Oh, the JFK example.
Yes, he brings up the 1960 U.S. presidential election between John F. Kennedy and Hubert Humphrey.
That is a perfect example of clashing operating systems.
Right. And to be clear to the listeners, we aren't taking any political sides here. We're just looking at the raw historical data of how their childhood environments shaped their perspectives.
Exactly. It's just a case study. So John F. Kennedy came from one of the wealthiest, most insulated families in the world.
Kennedy money.
Yeah. When a reporter asked him what he remembered about the Great Depression, which was the defining economic trauma of the century, JFK candidly admitted he had absolutely no firsthand knowledge of it.
None.
None. His family's wealth shielded them completely. They probably grew wealthier during that period. His only tangible memory of the Depression was his father hiring extra gardeners just to give local men something to do.
Wow.
That was his reality. Now, during the election, this became a massive point of contention because Humphrey, his opponent, grew up in the rural Midwest. He directly experienced the Dust Bowl and the crushing poverty of that era.
He lived it.
He lived it, and the electorate legitimately questioned how a man with zero conceptual understanding of profound economic suffering could manage the nation's economy. JFK and Humphrey weren't just politicians with different policies.
They were running on completely different economic operating systems based on their childhood anchoring. And Housel also brings in incredible data regarding inflation to prove this point even further.
The inflation data is wild.
He notes that if you were born in 1960, inflation during your teens and 20s, which are the exact formative years when your brain synapses are wiring themselves to understand how money works, was astronomical.
Prices literally tripled.
Tripled. So you learned on a visceral level that holding cash was dangerous because it lost value daily.
Right.
But if you were born in 1990, inflation during those exact same formative years was practically non-existent.
It was basically flat.
Flat. You literally experienced a completely different economic reality. You didn't learn to fear inflation in your bones the way the previous generation did.
This raises an important question, and it's one the script tackles masterfully, because the script takes Housel's vast macroeconomic data points, national inflation rates, the Great Depression, and it distills them into these intense, highly relatable family traumas, like the father at the hospital.
That makes it personal.
Very personal. And this effectively grounds the psychological concept of anchoring.
Can you define anchoring for the listeners?
Sure. Anchoring is a cognitive bias where an individual depends too heavily on an initial piece of information, or in this case, an initial emotional trauma, to make subsequent judgments.
Okay.
So the father's helpless face at the hospital is a massive, permanent emotional anchor.
Right.
The calm father recovering from a market loss is another anchor. These aren't just memories. They become the absolute baseline from which all future risks, rewards, and dangers are calculated.
So if we truly accept this premise, that every single person is running a different, unchosen, deeply anchored operating system, our entire framework for judging other people's financial decisions has to fundamentally shift.
We can't just call people stupid anymore.
No. Which brings us to what I honestly believe is the most powerful, empathetic chapter in Housel's entire book, and it forms the absolute core of the script's message. The idea that nobody is crazy.
Nobody is crazy. It's a profound, almost radically empathetic statement.
It really is.
Housel argues that because we all possess these wildly different lived experiences, we make decisions that make perfect sense to us internally, even if they look utterly insane to an outside observer.
Right.
We aren't being intentionally foolish. We're simply taking the limited information we have at the moment, filtering it through our unique mental model of how the world works, our operating system, and making the best choice we can.
The ultimate proof of this in the book is the analysis of lottery tickets.
Oh, this blew my mind.
The statistics are wild. Americans spend more money on lottery tickets than on movies, video games, music, sporting events, and books combined. Combined. And who is buying the vast majority of these tickets? It is overwhelmingly the lowest income households.
Yeah.
The book states they spend an average of $400 a year on lotto tickets. Now, on the surface, if you were sitting comfortably in the middle class or upgrade, looking at a spreadsheet, this looks like pure financial illiteracy.
It looks crazy.
It looks crazy. You think if they just invested that $400 in an index fund every year, they would build wealth.
And it looks especially crazy when you factor in another statistic Housel highlights, which is that roughly 40% of Americans cannot come up with $400 in an emergency.
Wow.
So the data tells us that the very people who are blowing $400 a year on mathematically terrible lottery bets are the exact same people who report they couldn't cover a $400 emergency.
That is, yeah, to someone with a safety net and a 401k, this is totally baffling behavior. It defies all logic.
But Housel strains to understand their perspective rather than just condemn it. He constructs this hypothetical inner monologue for these buyers to explain the underlying psychology.
What does he imagine they're saying?
He imagines them saying, "We live paycheck to paycheck. Saving even a small amount seems entirely out of reach because our basic expenses outstrip our income. We can't afford nice vacations, we can't buy new cars, we can't send our kids to elite colleges."
So they're locked out.
Right, so buying a $2 lottery ticket is literally the only time in our lives we can hold a tangible, physical dream of getting the good stuff that you already have and take for granted.
Wow. So they aren't buying a financial asset, they're paying for a psychological escape.
Exactly. They are buying a split second of hope.
Now, you don't have to agree that it is a smart financial move.
No, the expected value of a lottery ticket is mathematically negative.
But once you hear that explanation, you can suddenly understand why they do it. It becomes subjectively rational.
Subjectively rational.
And the script takes this exact psychological deep dive and applies it to everyday consumerism. Think about the person you know who buys luxury designer brands that they clearly mathematically cannot afford.
We all know someone like that.
The script argues this isn't financial illiteracy, it is emotional compensation.
Right.
If that person grew up in deep poverty, wearing hand-me-downs, feeling this deep, burning shame about their worn-out shoes at school while the other kids mock them,
That leaves a mark.
a huge mark. So when they finally get a paycheck as an adult, buying the designer bag or the expensive sneakers is a way of treating a childhood wound.
Good.
The wound is trying to heal itself through consumption.
And you can flip that dynamic entirely, too.
How so?
Consider the high earner who makes a massive salary but lives in a tiny, dilapidated apartment, drives a 15-year-old car, and obsessively hoards cash to the point of absurdity.
Right, society might mock them as a cheapskate.
Exactly. But what if they grew up watching their parents' seemingly stable middle-class lifestyle collapse overnight due to a sudden corporate layoff? Their extreme frugality isn't just about saving pennies. The script vividly refers to it as armor.
Armor?
It is psychological protection against a catastrophe they witnessed as a vulnerable child.
Okay, hold on. I need to challenge this for a second because it feels like we might be letting people off the hook a little too easily.
All right, challenge away.
If a decision actively ruins your life, like going into massive, high-interest credit card debt for a designer bag that depreciates the moment you leave the store, or hoarding so much cash under the mattress that inflation eats your purchasing power and you can never retire, can we actually seriously call that rational?
I think what you're saying.
Like, are we just inventing psychological excuses for bad math?
That is the critical tension of the entire book, honestly. And if we connect this to the broader field of behavioral economics, we have to make a very sharp distinction between objective rationality and subjective rationality.
You lay that out for me.
Yeah. Objectively, no, it is not rational. The math absolutely does not work, and the consequences will be objectively harmful.
Right.
But subjectively, based on the specific, limited, often traumatized data set their life provided them, the decision feels entirely rational to them in that specific moment.
Right.
As the script brilliantly puts it, when we judge others, we are judging the final frame of the movie without knowing the input.
Without seeing the rest of the film.
Exactly. We are watching the ending without having seen the character development. We don't know the internal narrative they are running. We don't know the trauma they are desperately trying to soothe or the deep-seated fear they are trying to outrun.
You are seeing the output without knowing the input. This is such a killer way to phrase it.
It really is.
We judge the visible purchase, but we are completely blind to the invisible operating system running the code.
Yeah.
So if we accept this, if we acknowledge that we shouldn't aim for objective spreadsheet-level rationality because our emotions, histories, and traumas will constantly intervene,
Right.
what is the alternative?
What do we do?
Yeah. What should we aim for when structuring our financial lives?
This leads us to what might be the most practical paradigm shift in Housel's book, found in chapter 11.
Okay.
He argues that aiming to be mostly reasonable works far better in the real world than trying to be coldly rational.
Mostly reasonable.
Right. The underlying truth is that you are not an Excel spreadsheet. You are a biological organism. You are a screwed up, emotional, hormonally driven human being.
Just for yourself. Just kidding.
Right. But because of that undeniable fact, you need a financial strategy that accounts for human frailty rather than one that demands robotic perfection.
Reasonable beats rational. I find this concept so incredibly liberating.
It takes the pressure off.
It really does. And the best example Housel uses to illustrate this is the story of Harry Markowitz.
Oh, it is the perfect illustration. For context for the listener, Harry Markowitz is not just some average investor. He literally won the Nobel Prize in economic sciences.
The Nobel.
Yes, he won it for pioneering modern portfolio theory, which mathematically defines the exact optimal trade-off between risk and a return.
He's the math guy.
He discovered the efficient frontier, the absolute mathematical peak of how to allocate assets for maximum gain and minimum risk. He is the godfather of rational investing.
Okay, so he's a genius.
But when a journalist asked Markowitz how he invested his own retirement money in the 1950s while he was actively developing these complex mathematical models, his answer was stunning.
What did he say?
He completely abandoned his own optimal Nobel Prize-winning math.
Wait, really?
Completely ignored it. He explained that he visualized his own future growth. He imagined how sick to his stomach he would feel if the stock market skyrocketed and he wasn't fully invested, and conversely, how devastated he would be if the market crashed and he lost everything.
So he was factoring in his own emotions.
Exactly. His primary goal wasn't to maximize returns. His goal was to minimize his future emotional regret.
So what did the Nobel laureate actually do?
He just split his money 50-50 between bonds and equities.
The man who mathematically proved the perfect way to invest completely ignored it because he knew he couldn't stomach the emotional ride.
Yeah.
That tells you absolutely everything you need to know about behavior versus math. A rational investor makes decisions based on numeric facts on a whiteboard, assuming they will feel nothing when the numbers drop.
Which is impossible.
Exactly. A reasonable investor makes decisions based on the reality that they have to sleep at night, they have a spouse they don't want to argue with, and they have internal anxieties they have to manage.
And to further explain this, Housel uses a brilliant biological analogy about fevers.
Oh, I love this one.
Biologically and medically speaking, a fever is highly rational.
Wow.
It is your body's evolved optimal strategy to raise its core temperature and burn out an infection.
Right, it's doing its job.
From an evolutionary standpoint, it is the perfect mathematical response to disease. But practically, it hurts. You shiver, your joints ache, you hallucinate, you feel entirely miserable. So when you go to the doctor, you don't care about the evolutionary rationality of the fever. You just want a pill to make the pain stop.
Give you the Tylenol.
Exactly. It may be rational to want a fever to fight a virus, but it is not reasonable to suffer through it when you have an alternative.
Yes. And Housel applies this fever analogy to a really fascinating study conducted by researchers at Yale University.
The margin leverage one?
Yeah. These academics published a paper arguing that young savers should use 2-to-1 margin leverage to buy stocks for retirement.
Okay, break that down.
For the listener, margin leverage basically means borrowing money to invest. The researchers argued you should borrow $2 for every $1 of your own money.
That sounds risky.
It is. But they ran the Monte Carlo simulations, and the math definitively proved that even if the market crashes and wipes out the investor's entire portfolio, if they just keep picking themselves up, borrowing more money, and doing it again, they will mathematically end up with 90% more wealth by retirement age than someone who didn't use leverage.
So the math works perfectly on paper.
It works perfectly.
It is an objectively, undeniably rational strategy. But as Housel points out, it is absurdly, laughably unreasonable.
Totally.
Because it fundamentally ignores human behavior. No normal human being could watch 100% of their life savings evaporate in a margin call, get completely wiped out, and be so emotionally detached that they just dust themselves off and cheerfully resume the exact same high-risk leverage strategy the next Monday morning.
I will literally throw up.
Right. They would be traumatized, they would quit investing entirely, they would panic, they might even sue their financial advisor.
Yeah.
A technically perfect mathematical strategy is entirely useless if it is so emotionally brutal that you cannot stick with it during the inevitable hard times.
Which is exactly why the deep analysis script does something so powerful here. It doesn't give the listener budgeting tips or some fancy spreadsheet template. It turns the mirror directly onto the listener and forces them to sit with deeply uncomfortable psychological questions.
The hard questions.
Yeah. It asks, why do you spend? Is it an actual physical need? Or is it a reward for surviving the week?
Right.
Is it a mechanism to quiet a lingering anxiety? What do you actually feel when your account balance goes up? Are you feeling genuine lasting security, or are you just feeling a temporary reduction in panic?
That's a huge distinction.
And what are you truly checking when you open your banking app on your phone? Are you checking a numerical balance, or are you checking your self-worth?
Man, those questions are the vital bridge between knowing the math and actually changing the behavior. And Housel suggests something highly unorthodox here. He says you should actually love your investment.
Which is crazy to hear from a finance guy.
It totally goes against the traditional Wall Street advice of being completely cold and emotionless. But Housel understands that if you lack an emotional connection to your strategy, you will walk away the very moment the market gets tough.
You'll just bail.
Exactly. If you genuinely love your imperfect, mathematically suboptimal strategy, if it lets you sleep deeply at night without checking the news, you are far more likely to stay in the game.
And staying in the game is everything.
It really is. Enduring through the cycles and allowing compounding to work over decades is practically the only quantifiable advantage the average investor has.
So it isn't about optimization at all. It all comes down to endurance.
Exactly.
Okay, so having explored all of this internal psychology, the childhood anchors, the operating systems, the difference between rational and reasonable, the script does something structurally fascinating at the very end.
Right, the pivot.
Yes, it pivots.
Yep.
It turns outward to look at what we are actually chasing with all of this behavior. It ends on a cliffhanger that redefines the ultimate goal of this entire financial journey.
It is a crucial pivot because we can spend hours analyzing how to behave with money, but eventually we have to ask the existential question, what is the money actually for?
What's the point?
What are we trying to achieve? And the script's final provocation states that most people spend their entire lives trying to look rich.
Right.
They want the visible markers of success, the massive car, the luxury clothes, the premium lifestyle depicted on Instagram.
The Rolex, the vacations.
Yeah. And when the world looks at them, the assumption is, wow, they have really made it. But the script introduces a massive, invisible, and vital distinction. There's a profound difference between being rich and being wealthy.
The script leaves the listener with this line. There is a difference between being rich and being wealthy, and that difference is invisible to the naked eye.
I love that line.
This cliffhanger brilliantly sets up the next deep dive by violently tearing apart the expensive illusion of what we admire in other people. And this concept is directly drawn from Housel's Chapter 9, which is titled, Wealth is What You Don't See.
It is perhaps the most counterintuitive point in the entire book, because it actually goes against our evolutionary biology.
How so?
As humans, we are wired to assess status visually. Think of like a peacock's feathers.
Right, signaling.
We rely on visible signaling. Housel illustrates this by writing about his time working as a valet at a high-end hotel in Los Angeles.
Okay.
He would constantly park Ferraris, Porsches, and Lamborghinis. And naturally, when we see someone driving a $300,000 car, our brain immediately deduces that person is wealthy.
Of course.
But Housel points out the logical fallacy here. The only factual data point you actually have about their wealth is that they currently have $300,000 less than they did before they bought the car.
Or more likely, they have $300,000 more in debt.
Exactly. That is literally the only empirical fact you possess about them.
He brings up the incredible story of Rihanna to cement this point.
This story is amazing.
She nearly went bankrupt in 2009, and she ended up suing her financial advisor for mismanagement. And the advisor's response in court was absolutely legendary. He essentially said, was it really necessary to inform her that if you spend money on things, you will end up with the things and not the money?
It sounds like a joke, but it highlights a tragic misunderstanding of finance.
It really does.
When most people say, I want to be a millionaire, what they are actually communicating is, I want to spend $1 million.
Yes.
But spending $1 million is the exact literal opposite of being a millionaire. By definition, to be a millionaire, you must not spend the $1 million.
You have to keep it.
Wealth is the nice cars not purchased. It is the diamonds not bought. It is the first-class upgrades declined. Wealth consists of financial assets that have not yet been converted into visible stuff.
That is so incredibly hard for our brains to process, because modern capitalism is entirely built on visible signaling.
Everything is visible.
If wealth is what you don't see, how do you even know you have it? What is the point of it?
Right.
And Housel answers this beautifully. He says, wealth is having the flexibility and independence to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want today.
The ultimate flex.
It is the ultimate, highest dividend that money pays. It buys you control over your own time. Being rich is about current income. It is driving the Ferrari to a job you might actually hate just to pay the lease on the Ferrari.
Yep.
Being wealthy is having the unspent options that give you the freedom to walk away.
And that concept ties this entire deep dive together perfectly. Think about it. If you are operating on a broken, unexamined financial system driven by childhood trauma, if you are spending money to heal an old emotional wound or spending to signal your worth and status to strangers, you are trapped in the endless pursuit of looking rich.
You're on a treadmill.
You are letting your unexamined emotions dictate your math, and you will stay on that treadmill forever. But if you can implement the pause, if you can interrogate your operating system and ask yourself why you behave the way you do, you can shift your goal from wanting to look rich to actually building invisible wealth.
You can buy back your time.
You can achieve true independence.
Okay, this has been an incredibly dense philosophical journey through the psychology of our wallets.
Seriously.
Let's synthesize this. If our listener is sitting at that desk in the dark, closing this book and reflecting on this analysis, what are the absolute most important insights they need to carry forward?
I would distill this expansive discussion into 7 core insights. First, money is behavior, not math.
Right.
Your ultimate financial outcome is dictated by invisible psychological patterns and emotional regulation, not your ability to execute complex calculus. The patient janitor can reliably beat the greedy Harvard executive if he possesses the right temperament.
Absolutely.
Second.
The power of the pause. The entire gap between person A, who lives paycheck to paycheck, and person B, who is in control of their destiny, is often just the micro-decision to stop for 5 seconds before a purchase.
Just 5 seconds.
It is the ability to ask yourself if this transaction serves your future freedom or if it merely comforts your present anxiety.
Third, your operating system is inherited. You did not consciously choose your money personality.
None of us did.
Your baseline financial behaviors, fears, and risk tolerances were heavily shaped by the traumas, observations, and macroeconomic environments of your childhood. You absorbed the code before you ever had a job to apply it to.
Fourth, nobody is crazy.
This one is huge.
Every single financial decision, no matter how objectively destructive it looks on a spreadsheet, makes subjective sense to the person making it in that specific moment. We're all just reacting to the unique, limited data set and the emotional story our lived experience gave us.
Fifth, reasonable beats rational.
Love this one.
Do not aim for the mathematically perfect investment portfolio or the most optimized budgeting spreadsheet if it requires you to act like an emotionless robot. Aim for the strategy that allows you to sleep peacefully at night during a market crash. In wealth building, long-term endurance is infinitely more important than short-term optimization.
Sixth, understand the wound. Destructive spending habits or obsessive, joyless hoarding are rarely about the money itself.
It's never just the money.
They are almost always forms of emotional compensation attempts to heal past deprivation, soothe deep-seated shame, or build armor against lingering fear.
And finally, seventh, rich is seen, wealth is hidden.
The big pivot?
True wealth isn't the luxury car in the driveway or the designer clothes. True wealth is the unspent money. It is the invisible accumulation of assets that buys you the ultimate luxury. Freedom, independence, and total autonomy over your own time.
Those are incredibly powerful paradigm-shifting takeaways. So let's bring it all back to you. You're sitting there at your desk. The house is quiet. The lamp is still glowing. You have just unpacked the reality that your childhood anchored your operating system and that your parents' unspoken anxieties and triumphs became the invisible code running your financial life today.
Yep.
But I want you to consider this final thought. The way you behave with money today, the quiet anxiety you carry when bills arrive, the impulse purchases you make on your phone when you are stressed, the hushed, tense arguments you have with your spouse about spending, all of that is not happening in a vacuum.
No, it's not.
It is actively writing the financial operating system for your children right now.
They're watching you.
They are analyzing your emotional reactions, just like you watched your parents. If your current financial behavior is the raw data they are being trained on, what kind of script are you handing them for their future?
Man, that is the ultimate existential question of this deep dive. Because mastering the psychology of money isn't just about fixing your past or optimizing your present. It's about ensuring you don't pass the same broken, fear-based code to the next generation.
Exactly. It is a profound responsibility, something to mull over in the quiet of the night. Until next time, keep diving deep.